Ladies and gentlemen, people don't fear change. What they fear is uncertainty. They fear the unknown. They fear losing control over what's familiar, over what's predictable. It's not the change itself that unsettles us. It's the space between what we know and what comes next. Think about it. Every great innovation, every leap forward in history happened because someone embraced change, not because they were fearless, but because they believed in something greater than the fear. Consider the first time you learned to ride a bike. There was hesitation, maybe even a little fear, but the desire to ride was stronger. You wobbled, maybe you fell, but you got back up. You pushed forward because you believed in what was on the other side of that discomfort, the freedom, the adventure, the joy of riding. That's change. That's growth. The problem isn't change itself. The problem is how we frame it. Too often, we talk about change as something that happens to us, as if we are passengers on a ship being tossed by waves we cannot control. But what if we saw it differently? What if we saw change as something we can participate in, something we can shape? Organizations struggle with change not because people don't want it, but because leaders fail to show them why it matters. Employees resist new initiatives not because they don't care, but because they haven't been given a clear vision of what's ahead. When we don't understand the reason behind a change, we fill the gaps with doubt, fear, and resistance. Change without purpose feels like chaos, but change with purpose feels like progress. Imagine two people climbing a mountain. One was forced to go, the other chose to go. The one forced to climb sees every step as a struggle, every rock as an obstacle, every moment as something to endure. The one who chose to climb sees the same path, but instead of focusing on the struggle, they focus on what's ahead, the breathtaking view, the sense of accomplishment, the growth that comes from the journey. It's the same climb, the difference is purpose. Great leaders understand this. They don't just announce change and expect people to follow. They inspire people to see what's possible. They don't just say, we're changing. They say, here's where we're going, and here's why it matters. People don't resist change when they feel included in it. When they understand their role in the bigger picture, when they see how their contributions make a difference, fear gives way to excitement. The unknown becomes an adventure instead of a threat. But let's be real. Change isn't always easy. It comes with discomfort. It requires us to let go of what's familiar, to step into something that feels uncertain. And that's hard. The question isn't whether change will happen. The question is how we choose to respond to it. Do we resist and cling to the past? Or do we lean in and help shape the future? Do we let fear paralyze us? Or do we use it as fuel to move forward? Think about the most fulfilling moments of your life. The moments you felt the most alive, the most proud, the most accomplished. Were they moments of comfort and safety, or were they moments of growth, of stepping into the unknown, of proving to yourself that you are capable of more? Growth and comfort do not coexist. Every breakthrough, every moment of true progress requires us to step outside of what's comfortable. It asks us to take a risk, to trust ourselves, to believe in something bigger than the fear. And here's the truth. Change is happening whether we like it or not. The world is evolving, industries are shifting, technology is advancing. We can either resist and be left behind, or we can embrace it and move forward. The ones who thrive aren't the ones who hold on to the past. They are the ones who adapt, who learn, who stay curious, who remain open to possibility. They are the ones who see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity. So the next time you face change, ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Is it the change itself, or is it the uncertainty? Is it the discomfort, or is it the possibility that I might fail? And then ask yourself this, what if I don't fail? What if this change is exactly what I need? What if the best version of myself is waiting on the other side? Because in the end, it's not change we fear, it's the idea that we might not be ready for it. But here's the secret, you are ready. You always have been. People don't fear change, they fear uncertainty. It's not change itself that unsettles us, but the unknown and the loss of control. Change without purpose feels like chaos. But change with purpose feels like progress. When people understand the why behind change, fear turns into motivation. Great leaders don't enforce change, they inspire it. Leadership isn't about making people follow, it's about helping them see the vision and their role in it. Growth and comfort do not coexist. Every meaningful achievement comes from stepping outside of what's familiar. Change is happening whether we like it or not. Our choice is how we respond. Those who embrace change and adapt will thrive, while those who resist will be left behind. People don't fear change, they fear uncertainty. It's easy to assume that people resist change simply because they prefer things to stay the same, but that's not entirely true. Change in itself is not the problem. The real issue is that when faced with change, people often feel like they are losing control. They feel like they're stepping into something unknown, something unpredictable, and that's what creates resistance. Think about a time in your life when you made a big transition, a new job, moving to a different city, starting a new relationship. The idea of what was ahead was exciting, but there was also hesitation. Not because you didn't want the change, but because you weren't entirely sure what was going to happen next. The mind starts playing out all the what if scenarios. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if this decision makes things worse instead of better? That's the fear of uncertainty, not the fear of change. But here's the interesting part. When the unknown becomes known, when the uncertainty fades, the fear disappears. Once you settle into that new job, once you get used to that new city, once the relationship finds its rhythm, the fear that once seemed overwhelming is no longer there. This proves that it was never the change itself that was the problem. It was simply the fact that you didn't know what to expect. This is why so many people stay in jobs they dislike, relationships that don't fulfill them, or routines that don't serve them. It's not because they are truly happy in those situations, but because they at least know what to expect. Even if something isn't great, at least it's predictable. The idea of stepping into the unknown, even if it holds something better, can feel overwhelming. The fear of uncertainty is deeply wired into human nature. The brain is designed to seek patterns, to make sense of the world, to create familiarity. When something disrupts that familiarity, it triggers a sense of danger. This is why even positive changes can feel unsettling at first. Someone who has been given an incredible career opportunity might still feel anxious about stepping into a new environment. Someone who has finally achieved a long-term goal might still feel nervous about what comes next. It's not because they don't want these things, it's because their brain is trying to adjust to something unfamiliar. This is also why people are more likely to embrace change when they feel prepared for it, when they have information, when they understand what's coming, when they feel like they have some level of control over the process. The fear diminishes. This is why businesses that communicate change effectively have employees who are more willing to adapt. It's why leaders who take the time to explain the bigger picture have teams that trust them. People don't resist change when they feel like they are part of the process. They resist when they feel like they are being thrown into something blindly. Think about how people react to change in different scenarios. When a company suddenly announces a major restructuring without any warning, employees feel anxious, uncertain, and even defensive. But when that same company takes the time to explain why the change is happening, how it will impact them, and what the plan is moving forward, the reaction is completely different. Even if the change itself is challenging, people feel more confident navigating it because they have context. The same applies in personal life. Imagine someone who has been in the same routine for years, waking up at the same time, doing the same job, following the same schedule. Suddenly, something disrupts that routine. Maybe they have to move to a new city. Maybe they need to take on new responsibilities. If they don't have clarity on what comes next, the transition feels overwhelming. But if they can clearly see how the change benefits them, if they have a roadmap to follow, they begin to embrace it rather than fear it. This is why great leaders, whether in business, communities, or families, don't just impose change on people, they guide them through it. They provide a vision, a reason, a sense of purpose. They help remove the fog of uncertainty so that people can see the opportunities on the other side. Because the truth is, most people don't need things to stay the same. They just need to feel like they are standing on solid ground as they move forward. And it's not just about leadership, it's about how we approach our own lives as well. How often do we hold ourselves back from making a decision simply because we don't know what's on the other side? How many dreams have been postponed? How many opportunities have been missed simply because the unknown felt too risky? The reality is, every major breakthrough, every significant achievement comes with some level of uncertainty. There is no way to predict every outcome, no way to control every variable. But if we let the fear of the unknown dictate our choices, we end up stuck in the same place, living the same patterns, never stepping into our full potential. The people who accomplish great things, the ones who build successful businesses, the ones who change industries, the ones who inspire others, they aren't the ones who had all the answers in advance. They are the ones who moved forward anyway. They didn't wait for certainty. They accepted that uncertainty is part of the process. The question isn't whether change is scary, it's whether we allow the fear of uncertainty to control us or whether we push forward despite it. Because the truth is, the greatest rewards, the biggest growth, and the most meaningful moments in life don't happen in the space of predictability. They happen when we are willing to step into the unknown, trusting that what's ahead is worth it. Change without purpose feels like chaos, but change with purpose feels like progress. When people don't understand why something is happening, their natural instinct is to resist it. They see it as a disruption, an inconvenience, or even a threat. But when there is a clear purpose behind the change, when people can see how it leads to something meaningful, they don't just accept it, they engage with it. They take ownership of it. They find motivation in it. Imagine walking into a room and being asked to move every piece of furniture to a different spot. No explanation, no reason, just move everything. Most people would push back. They would ask why, they would feel frustrated at the seemingly pointless effort. But now imagine that same scenario, except this time, you're told that the new arrangement will create a more comfortable, more beautiful space where people can connect better and feel more at ease. The task is the same, moving the furniture, but the reaction is completely different. When people understand the purpose behind their actions, they become invested in the outcome rather than resentful of the effort. This is why organizations that handle change poorly often find themselves in crisis. When companies implement new policies, restructure teams, or introduce new technologies without explaining the bigger picture, employees feel disconnected. They see change as something being forced upon them rather than something they are a part of. It feels random, chaotic, and frustrating. But when leadership takes the time to communicate the reason for the change, when they show how it contributes to a larger vision, people become willing participants in the process. They shift from resistance to collaboration. It's the same in everyday life. A person who suddenly finds themselves needing to adjust their habits, waking up earlier, changing their diet, or taking on new responsibilities, will struggle if they don't have a strong reason behind it. Without a purpose, every adjustment feels like a burden. But when they see how these changes contribute to something important, better health, personal growth, or a greater sense of fulfillment, those same adjustments become meaningful. They are no longer just tasks to complete. They are steps towards something bigger. This is why people who achieve lasting success don't just focus on what needs to change, but on why it needs to change. They don't wake up every morning thinking about the difficulties ahead. They wake up thinking about the purpose behind their actions. Athletes don't train for hours every day because they enjoy exhaustion. They do it because they have a vision of what they want to accomplish. Entrepreneurs don't take risks and work long nights just for the sake of being busy. They do it because they believe in what they're building. When there is a compelling reason behind the effort, what once felt like struggle now feels like progress. The difference between chaos and progress is clarity. When people lack clarity, every shift feels disruptive. But when there is a clear sense of direction, even the hardest changes feel worth it. Think about a ship in the middle of a storm. If the captain has no destination in mind, the storm feels overwhelming. The waves feel random and uncontrollable. There is no confidence in what's ahead. But if the captain knows exactly where they are going, the storm is still difficult, but it's not chaotic. It's just part of the journey. The waves are no longer distractions. They are obstacles to overcome in pursuit of a meaningful destination. This is why people with a strong sense of purpose handle change better than those without it. When you know why you're moving forward, uncertainty doesn't shake you as much. You may not know exactly how things will unfold, but you trust that every step is taking you closer to something important. People who lack purpose, on the other hand, feel lost whenever things shift. Every setback feels like a failure. Every challenge feels like a reason to quit. Without a clear goal, they see change as a series of random events rather than a structured path towards something greater. Leaders who understand this make sure that people don't just hear about change, but understand the reason behind it. They don't just give orders, they share the vision. They help people see beyond the immediate inconvenience and focus on the larger purpose. And when people see that purpose, they stop feeling like change is happening to them and start feeling like they are an active part of something bigger. In any situation, whether it's a business undergoing a transformation, an individual working toward a goal, or a team facing new challenges, the key is to define the purpose behind the change. Without it, every shift feels confusing, every challenge feels pointless. But with purpose, every step, no matter how difficult, feels like it matters. And when people believe that what they're doing matters, they find the strength to keep going, no matter how uncertain the road ahead may seem. Change without purpose feels like chaos, but change with purpose feels like progress. The way people experience change is not determined by the change itself, but by whether they understand the reason behind it. When people don't see the purpose, they resist. When they do, they engage. It's not because humans are naturally opposed to change, it's because they need to feel that their efforts are meaningful. Without that sense of meaning, change feels random, confusing, and exhausting. But when people understand why something is happening, they embrace it, even when it's difficult. Imagine an architect redesigning a city. If construction crews were told to tear up roads, knock down buildings, and relocate structures without explanation, the process would feel like pure destruction. People would be frustrated, they would see the mess, the inconvenience, the disruption to their routines, and they would protest. But if those same people were shown the blueprints for what the city would become, a more efficient layout, better traffic flow, a more beautiful skyline, they would have an entirely different reaction. The chaos of construction wouldn't feel like destruction, it would feel like transformation. That's the difference purpose makes. When organizations introduce change without purpose, they create confusion. Employees feel like decisions are being made without their input, and even if those decisions are beneficial in the long run, the lack of clarity creates frustration. People don't resist change because they dislike new things. They resist because they don't like feeling powerless. When leadership takes the time to communicate a clear vision, why the change is happening, how it will benefit everyone, and what role each person plays in it, resistance fades. People start to see themselves as contributors to something bigger rather than victims of an unpredictable shift. This applies beyond organizations. In personal life, when someone tries to make a big change without a clear sense of why, they struggle to maintain momentum. Think about someone who wakes up one morning and decides to get in shape. They start exercising, but after a few weeks, they lose motivation. They begin questioning whether it's worth it, whether it's really making a difference. But if that same person connects their fitness journey to a deeper purpose, wanting to be healthier for their family, building discipline for other areas of life, proving to themselves that they can achieve hard things, the effort no longer feels like a burden. It feels like progress. The reason purpose is so powerful is that it shifts our perspective. Without purpose, obstacles feel like reasons to stop. With purpose, obstacles feel like steps on the path to something worthwhile. A marathon runner doesn't enjoy exhaustion, but they endure it because they know it's leading somewhere. A musician doesn't enjoy hours of practice, but they push through because they see the end goal. A student doesn't love late nights of studying, but they stay focused because they believe in the future they're building. When change lacks purpose, it feels like wandering in the dark. People feel unsettled because they can't see what's ahead. They don't know whether their efforts matter, whether they're moving in the right direction, whether things will actually improve. But when they have a sense of purpose, even uncertainty doesn't shake them as much. They may not know every detail of what's coming, but they trust that the direction is right. They move forward not because they have every answer, but because they believe in the bigger picture. Leaders who understand this take the time to explain not just what is changing, but why. They don't assume people will follow blindly. They don't treat employees, teams, or communities as passive participants in change. Instead, they invite them into the process, helping them see the destination so that the journey feels intentional rather than chaotic. This is why companies that have strong missions tend to have employees who are more engaged. It's why people who have a clear sense of personal purpose tend to handle life's challenges with greater resilience. When change is tied to something meaningful, people don't just go through the motions. They push forward with intention. But purpose isn't something that can be assigned from the outside. It has to be understood, believed in, and internalized. Telling people to embrace change without giving them a compelling reason is like asking someone to walk a difficult path without telling them where it leads. The path will feel like a struggle and they will question why they are on it. But if they understand what's at the end, they will endure the difficulties because they see value in the journey. This is true whether the change is happening in a business, a community, or an individual's personal life. When people feel like they are simply being pushed in a new direction without understanding why, they hesitate. But when they see the purpose behind it, they take ownership of the process. They stop seeing change as something being done to them and start seeing it as something they are a part of. In every major transformation, whether in history, business, or personal growth, the ones who succeed aren't necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They are the ones who connect change to a clear purpose. They don't avoid discomfort, they don't resist the process, and they don't demand absolute certainty before taking action. They move forward because they understand that progress isn't about staying in the same place. It's about choosing a direction and committing to it, even when the path isn't always easy. Great leaders don't enforce change, they inspire it. Leadership is not about issuing commands or demanding compliance. It's about helping people see a vision so compelling that they want to be part of it. When people feel like they are being forced into change, they resist. But when they believe in where they are going, they commit to the journey willingly. The most effective leaders don't push people into the future. They pull them toward it by painting a picture of what's possible. People don't naturally resist change. They resist change that feels imposed, unclear, or unnecessary. When a leader stands in front of their team and says, "This is what we're doing, and you need to get on board," the immediate response is hesitation. Even if the change is beneficial, people feel disconnected from it because they weren't given the opportunity to understand it, to process it, or to contribute to it. But when a leader stands in front of their team and says, "This is where we're going, and here's why it matters," the reaction is different. When people see the purpose behind change, when they feel like they are part of something meaningful, their energy shifts from resistance to engagement. The difference between an average leader and a great leader is how they approach change. An average leader relies on authority. They assume that because they are in charge, people will follow. They focus on rules, processes, and compliance. But a great leader focuses on influence. They know that people don't follow because they have to. They follow because they want to. Instead of demanding action, they inspire belief. Instead of forcing a new direction, they invite people to step into it with confidence. Think about a time when you were inspired to take action, not because you were required to, but because you genuinely wanted to. Maybe it was a coach who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe it was a mentor who showed you possibilities you hadn't considered. Maybe it was a leader who communicated a vision so powerfully that you felt excited to be part of it. The leaders who leave the greatest impact are the ones who make people feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves. Organizations that thrive during times of change are led by people who understand that transformation isn't about pushing people forward, it's about pulling them in. When leaders take the time to listen, to explain, to include others in the process, the response is completely different. Employees who feel heard are more likely to engage. Teams that understand the purpose behind their work are more willing to put in the effort. When people feel connected to a vision, they bring more energy, creativity, and commitment to making it a reality. This principle applies beyond leadership roles in business. It applies to parenting, teaching, coaching, any situation where influence is involved. Parents who simply issue commands to their children without explaining why will often find themselves met with resistance. But parents who help their children understand the values behind their rules create a foundation for lifelong principles. Teachers who simply assign work without showing students why it matters struggle to get engagement. But teachers who connect learning to real-world impact inspire students to care about what they are doing. The most successful movements in history weren't driven by people in positions of power demanding change. They were driven by leaders who inspired people to believe in something greater. They didn't just say, "We need to do things differently." They said, "Here's what's possible, and here's why we must move forward together." People followed not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to be part of something meaningful. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is assuming that if they simply communicate a change, people will follow. But information alone is not enough. Leaders must connect emotionally before they can influence behavior. Facts don't inspire people, beliefs do. Data doesn't create commitment, meaning does. When a leader shares a vision in a way that resonates with people's values, fears, and aspirations, they create a sense of ownership. Change stops being something happening to people and becomes something they are part of. The leaders who create the most lasting impact don't just communicate change, they embody it. They don't just talk about where they're going, they show it through their actions. When people see a leader who genuinely believes in what they are saying, who is willing to take risks, who demonstrates the behaviors they expect from others, their trust deepens. But when leaders demand change without modeling it themselves, skepticism grows. No one is inspired by someone who tells them to act a certain way while doing the opposite. True leadership requires authenticity. One of the most powerful ways leaders inspire change is by making people feel safe in uncertainty. Change is hard not because people don't want it, but because they fear the unknown. A great leader acknowledges that fear, validates it, and then provides the reassurance people need to move forward. They don't dismiss concerns or ignore doubts, they address them head on. They provide a sense of stability even when the path ahead isn't entirely clear. They remind people that while change may be uncomfortable, it is leading to something better. When a leader inspires change rather than enforces it, the results are transformational. Teams become more engaged, organizations become more resilient. People step up not because they are told to, but because they believe in the mission. Resistance fades and momentum builds. The world doesn't need more leaders who rely on authority to demand change. It needs more leaders who inspire people to believe in the future they are building together. Leadership isn't about making people follow. It's about giving them a reason to want to. When leaders create that sense of belief, they don't just drive change, they create a movement. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but confidence grows with clarity. People don't resist change because they dislike new things. They resist it because they don't know what to expect. Uncertainty triggers hesitation, and hesitation leads to inaction. When faced with the unknown, the mind fills in the gaps with worst-case scenarios. What if this change makes things worse? What if I'm not capable of handling it? What if I fail? These questions create doubt, and doubt fuels fear. But when people have clarity, when they understand what's happening, why it matters, and how they fit into the picture, their confidence rises. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. You've been told there's something incredible on the other side, but you can't see what's ahead. The uncertainty of the unknown makes you hesitate. What if there's danger? What if you get lost? What if you make the wrong move? But now imagine that someone hands you a map and a flashlight. The path ahead is still new, but suddenly it doesn't feel as overwhelming. You have information, you have direction, you have clarity. And because of that, your fear starts to shrink. This is why leaders who communicate clearly are the ones who earn trust. When leaders fail to provide clarity, people feel lost. They start making assumptions, filling in the blanks with their own fears and doubts. But when leaders offer a clear vision, when they explain why change is happening, what the next steps are, and how it benefits everyone, people feel more in control. They stop fearing change and start moving toward it with confidence. Clarity doesn't mean having every answer. It doesn't mean eliminating all uncertainty. It means providing enough information for people to see the bigger picture. It means helping people understand the purpose behind what's happening. The reason so many people resist change isn't because they're incapable of adapting. It's because they don't have a clear understanding of where they're going. Think about how pilots communicate before a flight. Imagine if a pilot simply said, "We're going somewhere new," and left it at that. Passengers would be anxious. Where are we going? How long will it take? What should we expect? But when a pilot provides clear details, our destination, estimated arrival time, weather conditions, passengers feel more at ease. Even if there are bumps along the way, they trust the journey because they have enough information to feel secure. That's the power of clarity. In organizations, the same principle applies. When leaders introduce changes without explanation, employees feel anxious. They wonder how their roles will be affected. They worry about job security. They assume the worst because they don't have enough information to believe otherwise. But when leaders communicate openly, when they share the reasoning behind decisions, outline expectations, and provide a roadmap, employees feel empowered. Even if the change is challenging, they approach it with confidence because they understand it. Clarity isn't just important in leadership, it's crucial in personal growth. When people struggle with change in their own lives, it's often because they don't have a clear plan. Someone might want to start a business but hesitate because they don't know the first step. Another person might want to improve their health but feel overwhelmed by the uncertainty of where to begin. Without a clear strategy, fear takes over. But when they break things down, when they define their goal, outline the steps, and create a structure, their fear fades and their confidence grows. This is why successful people prioritize clarity. They don't just dream about change, they map out how to get there. They don't just hope things will work out, they create plans that guide them. When uncertainty is replaced with structure, the path forward feels possible. The most confident people in any field aren't necessarily the most talented or the most experienced. They're the ones who have the clearest sense of direction. They know what they want, they know why it matters, and they know the next step to take. That clarity fuels their confidence. They may not have every answer, but they have enough certainty to move forward despite the unknown. This is why people who lack clarity often feel stuck. They hesitate, they second guess, they overthink. It's not because they don't want to grow, It's because they don't know how to move forward. The more unclear a situation feels, the more intimidating it becomes. But when they define their next step, when they get even a small amount of clarity, their confidence starts to build. Great leaders, great businesses, and great individuals understand this. They don't wait for absolute certainty before taking action. They gather enough information to make a confident move, and then they adjust along the way. They recognize that fear is not the result of change itself, it's the result of feeling unprepared for change. And the best way to overcome that fear is with clarity. In any situation, whether it's leading a team, starting a new chapter in life, or pursuing a big goal, the key to overcoming fear is providing enough clarity to reduce uncertainty. The more people understand what they're doing and why it matters, the more willing they are to embrace change. Because when people feel informed, they feel capable, and when they feel capable, fear no longer holds them back. Progress isn't about eliminating uncertainty, it's about learning to move forward despite it. Change is never completely predictable. No matter how well planned, how carefully structured, or how thoroughly thought out, there will always be unknowns. The challenge isn't in avoiding uncertainty, it's in developing the mindset that allows us to keep going even when we don't have all the answers. People who make progress in life, in business, and in leadership aren't the ones who wait for absolute certainty before acting. They are the ones who step forward with confidence, knowing that clarity comes through action, not before it. Many people spend years waiting for the perfect moment to make a change. They wait until they feel fully prepared, until they have all the information, until every possible risk has been accounted for. But the truth is, that moment never comes. No one ever starts something new with complete certainty. No business leader, no entrepreneur, no innovator has ever built something meaningful while knowing exactly how it would unfold. The people who succeed are the ones who accept that uncertainty is part of the process and move forward anyway. Think about a time when you started something new. Maybe it was a new job, a new project, or even a new relationship. In the beginning, there was uncertainty. You didn't know exactly how things would go, but you took the first step. And as you moved forward, clarity started to emerge. You learned through experience. You adjusted as you went. What once felt unclear started to make sense because you took action. This is how progress works. Not by waiting for every detail to be certain, but by moving forward and figuring things out along the way. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a pool, hesitating to jump in. They want to know exactly how the water will feel before they take the leap. They want to be certain of every sensation, every reaction, every outcome before they commit. But the only way to truly know is to jump in. No amount of analysis, no amount of thinking, no amount of preparation can replace the clarity that comes from action. This is why the most successful people in any field aren't the ones who have all the answers from the beginning. They are the ones who are willing to take the first step despite the unknowns. They understand that certainty isn't a requirement for action, it's a result of it. The more they move forward, the clearer things become. The more they engage with the process, the more they learn. Leaders who understand this create cultures where action is valued over hesitation. In businesses that thrive, people are encouraged to take initiative, to experiment, to adapt as they go. In businesses that struggle, people are stuck in cycles of over-planning and hesitation, waiting for perfect conditions before making a move. But progress only happens when people are willing to act despite uncertainty. Consider the greatest innovations in history. No breakthrough ever happened in perfect conditions. Every major advancement, whether in technology, science, or social change, came from someone taking action despite not knowing exactly how things would unfold. The Wright brothers didn't wait for certainty before attempting to fly. They tested, failed, adjusted, and kept going. Thomas Edison didn't wait until he knew exactly how to create the light bulb. He experimented thousands of times, learning from each failure. The people who shape the world aren't the ones who wait for certainty. They are the ones who embrace the unknown and move forward anyway. This applies not just to innovation, but to personal growth as well. Anyone who has ever transformed their life, whether by improving their health, developing a skill, or pursuing a passion, has had to face uncertainty. A person who wants to get in shape doesn't know exactly how their body will respond at first. A musician learning a new instrument doesn't know exactly how long it will take to master a song, but they move forward, they practice, they adjust, and over time, what once felt uncertain becomes second nature. The key to overcoming hesitation isn't eliminating uncertainty, it's learning to take action despite it. The people who make progress are the ones who develop the ability to trust the process. They recognize that waiting for perfect clarity is a trap, that perfection is an illusion, and that every great achievement begins with a willingness to move forward, even when the path isn't entirely clear. Great leaders, great entrepreneurs, great thinkers, none of them had absolute certainty when they started. They had a vision, they had belief, and they had the courage to take the first step. They knew that clarity would come through movement, not through waiting. They understood that progress isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to find the answers along the way. This mindset is what separates those who achieve from those who remain stuck. Some people spend years waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right conditions, only to realize too late that those things never come. Others take action, even when they don't have everything figured out, and through that action, they create the opportunities they were waiting for. The difference between hesitation and progress isn't more knowledge or more preparation. It's a willingness to embrace uncertainty and move forward anyway. The people who accomplish the most aren't necessarily the smartest, the most experienced, or the most talented. They are the ones who understand that change will always involve some level of the unknown, and they don't let that stop them. They don't allow fear of uncertainty to keep them frozen in place. They trust that the process of taking action will bring the clarity they need. Uncertainty isn't the enemy of progress. It's a natural part of it. The question isn't whether you have all the answers before you start. The question is whether you're willing to start, knowing that the answers will come as you go. Because in the end, progress isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about learning to move forward despite it. Change is not the enemy. Uncertainty is not the barrier. The real challenge is how we choose to respond to the unknown. Fear and hesitation are natural, but they do not have to be permanent. The people who move forward in life, the leaders who inspire transformation, and the organizations that thrive are the ones that embrace change rather than resist it. They do not wait for certainty. They do not demand perfection. They understand that progress is built on movement, on action, on the willingness to step forward despite not having all the answers. The greatest opportunities in life exist just beyond the comfort zone. Every major breakthrough, every meaningful achievement, every powerful innovation comes from someone who is willing to move into the unknown. The path forward is never completely clear, and it does not need to be. Clarity comes from doing, from learning, from adapting. The people who grow are not the ones who sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment. They're the ones who take the leap and figure things out along the way. People are not afraid of change itself. They are afraid of what they do not understand. They are afraid of feeling out of control. When leaders fail to provide clarity, fear takes over. When individuals allow doubt to control their decisions, they remain stuck. But when people are given a clear vision, when they understand the purpose behind the change, and when they believe in their ability to navigate it, fear loses its power. The most inspiring leaders do not just announce change, they lead people through it. They communicate openly, they address concerns, they provide reassurance, and most importantly, they set an example. People do not follow leaders because of their titles. They follow them because they trust them. Trust is not built through authority. It is built through consistency, honesty, and a willingness to embrace the same challenges they are asking others to face. History is filled with moments where people had a choice: remain where they were, safe but stagnant, or step into the unknown and create something new. The most remarkable achievements came from those who were willing to take the risk. The leaders who shaped history, the visionaries who changed industries, and the individuals who transformed their own lives all had one thing in common. They did not let uncertainty stop them. They were willing to act, to try, to fail, to learn, and to grow. Progress happens when people stop waiting and start moving. It happens when organizations create environments where action is encouraged rather than delayed by fear of failure. It happens when individuals stop letting doubt control their decisions and instead choose to believe in their ability to figure things out along the way. The greatest things in life do not come from waiting for the perfect moment. They come from stepping forward even when the moment feels uncertain. The ability to embrace change is not something reserved for a select few. It is a skill that can be developed. The more people practice stepping into uncertainty, the more confident they become. The first step is always the hardest, but every step after that gets easier. The mind adapts, the fear lessens, and what once felt impossible becomes second nature. Growth is not about never feeling afraid. It is about not letting fear be the deciding factor. The world is constantly evolving. New technologies, new ideas, and new ways of thinking are reshaping industries, communities, and lives. Those who cling to the past, who resist change, who refuse to adapt, will find themselves left behind. But those who embrace change, who see uncertainty as an opportunity rather than a threat, will thrive. They will be the ones who create, who innovate, who lead. It is easy to stay where things are familiar, where the risks feel minimal, where the outcome feels predictable. But comfort zones do not create growth. They do not build great leaders. They do not drive innovation. They do not lead to transformation. The most successful people, the most impactful leaders, and the most forward-thinking organizations understand that progress requires discomfort. Growth requires movement. The willingness to step into the unknown is what separates those who stay the same from those who make a difference. The question is not whether change will happen. It is already happening. The question is whether we will choose to embrace it or resist it, whether we will move forward with confidence or allow fear to hold us back, whether we will lead ourselves and others into the future or remain stuck in the past. The choice is ours. The opportunity is in front of us, and the only thing standing in the way is the belief that we are not ready. But the truth is, no one is ever completely ready. The ones who succeed are simply the ones who decide to start.